You may remember him as Stuart Nielsen, part of the original cast of Shortland Street in the mid-90s, or from the Britney Spears Toxic video in the early 2000s. These days, he's a notable face in Hollywood after starring in Grey's Anatomy and box office success Everest. Martin Henderson is now undertaking a new venture, joining a voyage against single-use plastic. He joins us now from LA. Kia ora, Martin.
Kia ora. Good morning.
Good morning. Tell us about this mission. How long are you going to be with the voyage, and what exactly are you going to be doing?
Well, I think my role is pretty minimal in terms of what it is these guys are ultimately trying to bring awareness to. The journey started in Marina del Rey here in Los Angeles about a week ago, and they're about 800 miles into that journey, which is going to be about a 4-month trip covering over 8,000 miles down to New Zealand through the South Pacific. And what they're generously doing is donating a lot of their voyage to collecting data and giving that to different scientific communities in order to try to get an idea of how much single-use plastic and pollution there is in the oceans, specifically through the South Pacific. So I'll hopefully be joining on some of those legs, depending on my work schedule, maybe through Tonga or Samoa, somewhere around there, later this year. But I'm just sort of wanting to help try to bring awareness to this issue, because I think environmental issues, unfortunately, maybe because of the global warming debate and the misinformation that's been out there, I think the issue's sort of taken a bit of a back seat to other stuff. And I really want to help promote this idea, because I think once, particularly children, I think, become aware of just how much their daily choices around single-use plastic actually impacts the environment and how much of it is ending up in the oceans, I think people will start to hopefully make better choices around, the little things, like when you go to a supermarket, if you use, bring your own bags, or perhaps request from your local Thai restaurant, hey, how about you use corn-based products that are, compostable and biodegradable, rather than these things that clog up our waterways and pollute the ecosystem.
It definitely is quite a hard message to get across, and you can bang on about how plastic affects the health of the sea life forever and a day, and it's hard to get the message through. You're using the hashtag #EatMorePlastic. So explain how we're relating it to how it can affect humans and how that may work.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really vital thing for people to understand, and it might be difficult, but essentially there's about 269,000 tons. So, and then again, it's such a big number, we kind of go, wow, it's so big, gee. But if you try to even wrap your head around that for a second, understand that every time something we purchase that's plastic that could end up in the ocean that doesn't need to, we're reducing and mitigating the effect on our own food chain, because a lot of that plastic ends up slowly breaking down by UV rays into very minuscule particles. And they estimate there's about a 5.25 trillion particles of plastic in our oceans that eventually become so small that they're easily digestible by marine wildlife and fish that we eat, and then the birds that eat that. And so, I think we're slowly starting to get a head around about how interconnected we all are, as our own species and humanity, but also the entire planet. And I think part of what Eat Less Plastic is trying to make you aware of is that by purchasing less single-use plastic, you're actually directly affecting the amount of plastic that's put into the food chain, whether you can see that or not. And hopefully this voyage, and the ensuing documentation that they are trying to do will help promote that issue, and particularly get that into the classrooms. I think children, ultimately, when they're presented with these facts, whether they have more open hearts or just a little less skeptical, they're able to really grasp how important this is, and hopefully take affirmative action. And eventually we want that action to be presented in legislature and change the way businesses maybe use plastic in their wrapping. And there's an amazing cover of National Geographic that just came out, and it's an incredible image of a upside down plastic bag floating in the ocean. It looks identical to an iceberg, and at first impression it looks like one, and you realize you know, it's a visual pun on the idea of, you know, what we think is this natural phenomenon is actually pollution. And, you know, so there's this issue's becoming more and more into the forefront of people's minds again. And hopefully, you know, like you said, we keep banging on enough, you know, it may actually create some positive change.
Well, people like you lending your name and face to it obviously is going to help a lot. You're a massive Hollywood star, and if we can just touch on that for a little bit. You're in LA next. You've just finished on Grey's Anatomy, where you played Dr. Riggs. What's next for you in terms of your career?
That's a good question. I'm trying to decide what I want to do. Grey's was my first foray into sort of long-running television for a while, something that, you know, I did a lot of in New Zealand, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I think, you know, now I'm sort of looking at what something similar might be, where, you know, I spend one time on a long project. But, you know, I'm getting a little older these days, and definitely not willing to go too far afield, so I'm trying to find something that allows me to actually stay put here in Los Angeles a bit more, where, you know, I've built up my home and my community, and so I'm looking at a couple of things. Yeah, but I haven't made a decision yet, but I'd probably in the TV world, it looks like.
Awesome. Well, we wait with bated breath. Thank you for your time this morning, Martin Henderson.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
You right?
He's still got
I wanted to ask if he was coming back to New Zealand. Obviously, ask you for a friend.
Yeah, for a friend.
Well, you used to have posters of him.
I did.
Don't.
I really did.
Don't tell him
I had a
from
poster
there.
on him, and then I actually sort of collected all of the posters, like went round to
He's
all
going
the
to be listening. He's
newspapers.
listening right now.
I collected all of them.
Martin, you got a fan.
I know.
Eddie, I'll meet you at the airport. Hopefully.
I'm there.
Hold you to that, Martin. She'll hold you to
She'll
that.
be waiting.
Amazing.
She'll be waiting.